All right, let's talk about something that's incredibly important, but often flies under the radar: psychological manipulation. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the tactics people use to control others. We're going to walk through the whole thing from the incredibly seductive start all the way to how you can recognize it and reclaim your power. So, where do we start? First, we'll look at that seductive beginning, that phase where everything feels absolutely perfect. Then we'll talk about the turn, when reality starts to get blurry. After that, we're diving deep into the manipulator's entire playbook of tactics. We'll even peek inside the mind of a manipulator to understand why they do it. And most importantly, we'll finish up by talking about how to break the cycle. Okay, so let's get into it. The beginning of a manipulative relationship. Well, it almost always feels like a fairy tale. It's this intoxicating, amazing stage that's literally designed to feel too good to be true.
And just listen to this from Tatiana. She says, I felt like a goddess. That feeling of euphoria, that's the hook. That's the powerful memory that keeps people stuck, always chasing that initial high, desperately hoping to get back to that amazing feeling from the beginning.
You know, there's actually a name for this. It's called love bombing. And this isn't just someone being really into you. It's a full-on strategy. It's an overwhelming storm of attention, compliments, and affection, all designed to make you feel like you've met the one person on Earth who truly gets you. And get this, the origin of the term is pretty revealing. It was apparently coined by Sun Myung Moon, the leader of the Unification Church. He used it to describe how his followers should recruit new members. So, right from the start, this concept wasn't about genuine connection. It was about a calculated method of influence.
So, why on earth is love bombing so effective? Well, it's because it taps directly into one of our deepest, most human needs: the need to feel valued, to feel seen, to get that validation. The manipulator basically turns on a fire hose of validation, and it feels incredible.
But here's the thing about that fairy tale beginning: it can't last. It's not designed to. And slowly, the cracks begin to show. That amazing euphoria starts to fade, and it's replaced by this creeping fog of confusion, disorientation, and a whole lot of self-doubt. This is where a really insidious tactic comes into play: gaslighting. The entire goal of gaslighting is to make you question your own reality. It's a systematic dismantling of your perception until you start to think you're the one who's crazy. And the name itself has a fascinating story. It comes from this old play from 1938 called Gaslight. In it, a husband secretly keeps dimming the gas-powered lights in their home. When his wife mentions it, he tells her she's just imagining it, that she's going crazy. It's the perfect metaphor for denying someone's reality right to their face. I mean, just look at these goals. Make you question your memory, doubt your own stability, paint you as irrational. It's all designed to do one thing: replace your reality with their version of it. The more you doubt yourself, the more you have to rely on them. And that makes you so much easier to control. Okay, so we've covered the opening moves: the love bombing to pull you in and the gaslighting to confuse you. But those are just 2 pages in a much, much bigger playbook. So now, let's open the whole thing up and look at the full range of tactics. You know, experts have mapped this out into a predictable and really painful 3-stage cycle. First, you have idealization. That's the love bombing phase where you're perfect. You're put on a pedestal. Then comes devaluation. The pedestal gets kicked right out from under you. The praise turns into constant criticism. And finally, the discard. You're just dropped, often out of nowhere and with incredible cruelty, leaving you totally blindsided. Now, when you see these behaviors all laid out like this, it's a lot. And you start to see it's not just one isolated incident, right? It's a whole pattern. Moving way too fast, the constant hot and cold behavior, trying to isolate you from your friends, those jokes that are really just mean little digs. Every single one is a tool used to undermine and control you. And this right here is such a critical distinction to make. There's a huge difference between constructive criticism and manipulation. See, healthy feedback is about a specific behavior, and the goal is to help you grow. Manipulation, on the other hand, attacks who you are as a person. It's not about your growth. It's about their comfort and their control. So all of this brings up a huge question. Why? Why do people do this? What's actually going on inside the mind of a manipulator? Well, it turns out psychology has some answers, and it often points to a specific group of personality traits. A lot of these behaviors that we've been talking about are closely linked to a psychological profile that researchers call the dark triad. And this gives us a really useful framework for understanding these patterns. So let's break this down. The dark triad is basically made of three main ingredients. First, you've got narcissism, with its grandiosity and total lack of empathy. Then you mix in Machiavellianism, which is all about strategic manipulation and doing whatever it takes to win. And finally, you add psychopathy, which brings in impulsivity, selfishness, and a real lack of remorse. When you get these three traits together in one person, you get a personality that's defined by a pretty callous and exploitative way of dealing with other people. And from an evolutionary perspective, this isn't just random cruelty. Some psychologists see these traits as what they call a fast life strategy. Basically, it's an approach to life that's all about taking what you can get right now with very little thought for long-term consequences or building genuine connections. It's pure exploitation for immediate gain. Okay, understanding all of this is huge. It's absolutely the first step. But knowing what's happening is one thing. Actually doing something about it is another. So let's talk about the most important part, how you can spot these patterns, break the cycle, and take back your power. Which brings us to the biggest question of all, right? What can you actually do when you're facing this kind of behavior? How do you defend your own sense of self and hang on to your own reality? The way out is all about reclaiming your reality. That means learning to trust your gut and not ignoring those early red flags. It's about reestablishing firm personal boundaries and saying no. It means building your self-esteem from the inside so you don't need their validation. And maybe most crucially, it's recognizing that you absolutely cannot fix them and refusing to get drawn into their games. And I really want to drive this point home. Being targeted by a manipulator is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's often the opposite. They frequently go after people for their strengths, their kindness, their empathy, their compassion. They look for the very qualities that they themselves are missing. So we'll leave you with this final thought. A healthy relationship should feel like a safe harbor, a sanctuary, not a constant battlefield. So ask yourself, who really holds the power in your relationships? Because knowing the answer to that is the first step toward making sure you're supported, not controlled.